Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya. Jai Bhim, Namo Buddhaya. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. So today we are looking at the chapter 3 of the part 4, what is not Dhamma, of book 3. And this chapter 3 is titled by Baba Sahib Ambedkar as Dhamma based on union is a false Dhamma. So the title of the chapter is very clear, where Baba Sahib Ambedkar has been talking about not Dhamma. But here in this chapter, the heading is changed. What Baba Sahib says that Dhamma based on union with Brahma is a false Dhamma. He is not even saying it's a Dhamma. He is saying that it's a wrong Dhamma. It's a false Dhamma. So why is it so that Baba Sahib Ambedkar thought that it's a false Dhamma, and why the Buddha thought that it's a false Dhamma? So at the time of the Buddha, there was a doctrine prevalent at that time, which was called Vedantism. So we don't know whether it was a very prevalent doctrine, but there was something like that going on. And this is one of the school of thoughts that was present at the time in that ancient India, because the ancient India at that time was very vibrant. There were a lot of school of thoughts, and one of the school of thoughts was of the Vedantism. So what was the tenet of Vedantism? So Baba Sahib Ambedkar has tried to sketch the tenets of the Vedantism. So according to the verse number 3, behind the universe there is a omnipresent, a common principle of life called Brahma or Brahman. So that was a doctrine according to which beyond this, behind the universe, there is a omnipresent, a common principle of life which was called Brahma or Brahman. Even this doctrine is prevalent today. A lot of people are Vedantists and they talk about Vedantism. And this Brahma or Brahman is a reality. So according to this tenet, this Brahma or this what is called Brahman is a reality. And the Atman or the individual soul is the same as Brahma. So we always hear in Hindi languages like that, Atma ka Paramatma se milan, or meeting of Atma with Paramatma or Brahma. So that is what they have been, the doctrine of philosophy of Vedantism is about. The Atman or the individual soul is the same as Brahma. So whatever we have as a soul, according to Vedantism, is same as the Brahma or Brahma. So how does man's liberation take place? How does the man, liberation take place? According to the doctrine of Vedantism, the Atman or the individual soul, has to unite with the Brahma. As I said in Hindi, they said Atma ka Paramatma se milan. So this is the second principle, that man's liberation lies in making Atman to be one with Brahma. This is the second principle. So this is the second principle, that the individual Atma should unite with the Brahma. This unity with Brahma, the Atman can achieve by realizing that it is the same as Brahma. So how does the liberation is achieved? By realizing that the individual Atman is the same as the Brahma or Brahman. And what is the way to make Atman realize that it is the same as Brahman? Is to give up samsara. So whatever is the samsara, if an individual gives it up, they are naturally united to the Brahma, according to the doctrine, according to the philosophy of Vedantism. So that's in a nutshell called the doctrine of Vedantism, that there is omnipresent common principle of life called Brahma, and Brahma is the reality, then Atman or individual soul is the same as Brahma, and the liberation lies in uniting the individual soul, Atman, with the Paramatma, with the Brahma. And how does it achieved? It is achieved through giving up the samsara. So according to the verse number 10, as we know that the Buddha was critical of many doctrine of his time, similarly he was critical of this doctrine of Vedantism. So Buddha had no respect for the doctrine, and he declared this doctrine to be a false doctrine, a false Dhamma. So Buddha had no respect for the doctrine. He regarded it as based on false premises and producing nothing of value, and therefore not worth having. So this doctrine the Buddha rejected because he found that it is based on false premises on one hand, and on the other hand, it produces nothing of value. And therefore, this doctrine is not worth having. And this is what he made clear to the two Brahmins, young Brahmins, Bharadwaj and Vasita. And we have seen the glimpses of this sutra in the previous chapters of the Buddha and his Dhamma. So, according to the Buddha, verse number 12, the Buddha argued that there must be proof before one can accept a thing to be a reality. So we know that the Buddha was somebody who believed that there has to be the evidence of everything that is to be accepted. Without proof, nothing can be accepted as the reality. So the Buddha argued that there must be proof before one can accept a thing to be a reality. So there has to be a proof. Second, there are two modes of proof: perception and inference. Okay, so perception is generally called pratyaksha praman, and then there is anuman praman, that is inference. So there are two modes by which the Buddha accepted that we can know that something is reality by the direct perception or by inference, by the method of induction and deduction. And the Brahminical thought, they didn't accept these two pramans or two modes of knowing the reality. They accepted only what is called the Shabda Praman, Shabda Pramanya. And Shabda Pramanya entails Veda Pramanya. Veda Pramanya entails that whatever is written in the Vedas is the absolute truth. It's an unquestionable truth. You cannot challenge it. Why you cannot challenge it? Because they are not written by the human beings, they are written by the gods. So the human agency cannot challenge the authority of the Vedas. So the final authority according to Vedic Brahmanism lies in accepting the Shabda Pramanya, the evidence of the words, the evidence of the Veda, Veda Pramanya, Shabda Pramanya, and no question can be raised against them, even if the logic says otherwise, even the inference says otherwise, because the Vedas are created by the gods. But the Buddha accepted two modes of proof, perception and inference. And there is a lot of books written on the Buddhist logic. The Buddhist logicians have gone into a lot of depth of what is it, how do we take something as real. And there are some fantastic books that we can read on this ultimate fascinating field called Buddhist logic. So according to perception, the Buddha asked, has anybody perceived Brahma? Have you seen Brahma? Have you spoken to Brahma? Have you smelled Brahma? So this you see, this what Baba Sahib Ambedkar is trying to get it at through this chapter is to trying to establish that nothing can be taken as the reality unless there is an evidence. And Buddha says that if somebody is lying beyond our five senses or six senses, how do you know that that thing exists? If we cannot perceive it with eyes, if we cannot perceive it our ears or nose or tongue or touch, or even through thinking, if we cannot get to that thing, then how do we know that that thing exists? So the Buddha is asking a logical question. Has anybody perceived Brahma? Have you seen Brahma? Have you spoken to Brahma? Have you smelled Brahma? So I think these are very logical questions. isn't it? And that I think this is what we have to accept it as a rational thinking, because if we cannot sense something, if we cannot see something, if we cannot taste something, if we cannot feel something, how do you know? How do we know that that thing is a reality? So Asset, of course, says no, they cannot, pursue the Brahma. Let's look at the other mode of proof, the proof of inference. From what is Brahma the inference of? So how do we infer that the Brahma exists? What is that logical sort of method by which one can ascertain that the Brahma exists? For example, through the logical methods, through the scientific methods, we have induced, we have detected, we have discovered that the light is an electromagnetic spectrum, and there is a method that explains what is the nature of light. There are so many things. For example, the theory of evolution. Even if we cannot perceive the micro change that is happening all the time, but there are a lot of evidences through which we can infer that the evolution is a reality, and it's true about so many things. For example, through the inference, through the material evidences that we study, we can infer that the Buddhism was the religion of this land, throughout the length and breadth of the major part of the world at one point of time, because there are evidences, and based on the evidences, we can infer that that was the case. So, from what is Brahma the inference of? Asked the Buddha. There again was no answer. There are others who argue that a thing exists although it's invisible. So they say that Brahma exists although it is invisible. So then the Vedantis go on arguing that because it's invisible, we cannot see it, and there are a lot of invisible things, and you cannot see them. So of course, in verse number 19, in this bald statement, it is an impossible position. For Baba Sahib Ambedkar is a lawyer, and so he's putting the thinking, legal thinking here. Of course, is based on the Buddha's suttas. So what verse number 20 says? But for argument's sake, let it be granted that a thing exists although it is invisible. The best illustration of it is electricity. It exists although it is invisible. So how do we deny the existence of electricity? Because we can't see it, because we can't see the electrons flowing. Do we say that the electricity doesn't exist? No, we cannot, because there are, of course, manifestations of electricity that we see all around. An invisible thing must show itself in some other form that is visible, then alone it can be called real. We have to feel it in some other form. We have to be able to see it either through eyes, or through our ears, or or feel through our smell, and so on and so forth. Even the smell is invisible. The smell of a flower is invisible, but we feel it. We can smell it. The taste is invisible, but we can still say that this is salty, this is sweet. We can say that, though it's invisible, the taste is invisible. But if an invisible thing does not show itself in any visible form, then it is not a reality. Then how do you know that if it is not able to manifest, if it is not able to be seen, then how do we know that it's a reality? So verse number 25 says, we accept the reality of electricity although it is invisible because of the results it produces. So what electricity produces? Light. We all know that the electricity produces light. From light, we accept the reality of electricity, although it is invisible. What does this invisible Brahma produce? Does it produce any visible results? Does it produce any visible result? The answer is negative. There is no positive answer to this question, whether the Brahma produces anything visible. The answer is in the negative. Another illustration may be given. In law 2, it is common to adopt a basic principle, the basic concept of fiction, a proposition, the existence of which is not proved, but which is assumed to be true. For example, all people are equal. Though it's, we know that we all are unequal in the sense that we all are unique. One cannot be compared with other human being. We all are unique. That's why we all are special. But from the point of view, we have to accept the legal fiction that all human beings are equal. Because why? Because it produces the results which are positive. So, for example, let us look at this argument which has been put forth by Baba Sahib Ambedkar here. So, I'm going to read words number 29. Another illustration may be given. In law too, it is common to adopt as a basic concept a fiction, a proposition, the existence of which is not proved, but which is assumed to be true. And we all accept such a legal fiction. But why is such a legal fiction accepted? Why do we accept a legal fiction? Why do we have to accept that all human beings are equal? Why do we accept that all people are equal before law, unlike Manusmriti, which doesn't treat people equal before the law? But why is such a legal fiction accepted? The reason is that a legal fiction is accepted because it gives a fruitful and just result. Because the legal fiction, why certain things are accepted in the legality? Because they produce fruitful results. Brahma is a fiction. What fruitful result does it give? That's very true. For example, elsewhere Baba Ambedkar has said that to accept that everybody is a Brahma is a democratic principle. Brahmism. Everybody is having his Brahma, everybody is same. It's a democratic principle. But we have to look at what has happened. What happens in the world? The metaphysical doctrine of the Vedantis doesn't accord with the social and moral ethics. The Shankara, who was supposed to be the great propounder of Vedantism, revival of Vedantism, he was a casteist man. He practiced untouchability. He resorted to violence. He resorted to killing people. He encouraged people to kill. So how can, you at one hand, even one can say that, Brahma, Atma, Paramatma. But when it comes to the social ethics, it doesn't tally with it. So this, even if we treat Brahma as a legal fiction, it doesn't make any positive change to the world. Vasita and Bharadwaj were silent. To drive the argument home, he turned to Vasita and asked, have you seen Brahma? So again the Buddha asked, have you seen Brahma? Is there a single one of the Brahmanas versed in 3 Vedas who have ever seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Is there a single one of the teachers of the Brahmanas versed in the 3 Vedas who have seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Is there Vasita, a single one of Brahmanas up to the 7th generation who has seen Brahma face to face? No, indeed, Gautama. Well then, Vasita, did the ancient rishis of the Brahmanas, did even they speak thus saying, we know it, we have seen it, where Brahma is, whither Brahma is? Not so, Gautama. The Buddha continued this questioning of the 2 Brahmin boys and said, now what do you think? What do you think now? Vasita, does it not follow, this being so, that the talk of the Brahmanas about union with Brahma turns out to be a foolish talk? It's a foolish babble. It's a foolish talk to talk like that. Just Vasita, as when a string of blind men are clinging one to another, neither can the foremost see, nor can the middle one see, nor can the hindmost see, not just even so, methinks Vasita is the talk of the Brahmans, all but blind talk. The first sees not, the middle one sees not, nor can the last one. The talk of these Brahmanas turns out to be ridiculous, mere words of vain and empty things. So that's verse number 46 is sort of an affix of the argument that Baba Sahib Ambedkar, drives home in his support of, Buddha's teaching that Dhamma based on union with Brahma is a false Dhamma. It's just an empty talk. It's ridiculous. The talk of this Brahma is ridiculous. It's vain and empty thing. It's mere words. Just was it as if a man should say, how long for, how I love the most beautiful women in this land. The simile of the most beautiful women written back again and again. And we have to understand this rhetoric device that is used by the Buddha, that the people claim that they love the most beautiful women in the land. But if you ask them, who is that most beautiful woman? Is she coming from this caste or that caste, or whether she is fair, she is dark, whether she is tall, whether she is short? Because there is nothing like absolute beauty in the world. Okay, So there is nothing like the most beautiful women in the world, just like there is nothing like most handsome man in the world. And people should ask him, well, good friend, this most beautiful women in the land, whom you thus love and long for. So, it's also the play on the word. The Brahma is compared with the most beautiful women, like, it's a gossip. It doesn't exist. It's all hearsay. Okay, this most beautiful women in the land, whom you thus love and long for, do you know whether that beautiful woman is a noble lady or a Brahmin woman or of the trader class or a Shudra? But when so asked, he would answer no. And when people should ask him, well, good friend, this most beautiful woman in all the land, whom you love and long for, do you know what the name of that most beautiful woman is? Or what her family name, whether she be tall or short, or of medium height, dark or brunette, or golden in color, or in what village or town or city she dwells? But when so asked, he would answer no. Now, what do you think, Vasetta? This is a questioning of the Buddha. The way he taught. He asked the listener, what they think, and this is the mode of teaching that we need to all adopt. Trying to understand other people as well. So Buddha is giving an opportunity for the listener to explain themselves, and that is what is a very good communication strategy, to ask the question, what do you think? And Buddha will always ask, Tvam kim manatha. In Pali, it is called Tvam kim manatha. What do you think? What do you think? So Buddha is asked, Tvam kim manatta Vasetta? What do you think, Vasetta? Would it not turn out that being so, that the talk of that man was foolish talk? So the man saying that, he loves the most beautiful women in the world. And if we, it's found to be not true, because nothing like that exists in the world. It is just a mere talk. Now, what think you, Vasita? Would it not turn out that being so, that the talk of that man was foolish talk? In sooth, Gautama, that would be so, said the two Brahmins. So Brahma is not real, and any religion based upon it is useless. So, we have seen this chapter, the chapter number 4, on what is not Adhamma, what is not Dhamma, what is Adhamma. And here Baba Ambedkar is saying that, this is useless to believe in the doctrine of Vedantism. It is mere wordplay. It is mere conceptual, jugglery. It has nothing substantial in it. It doesn't help the society, and so on and so forth. And I think the next chapter goes on in depth about the soul. And when there is no soul, then this talk about the union of Atma with Paramatma again becomes absurd. So, we are going to look at the chapter number 4 in the next session. But before that, I think we have prepared a ground through chapter 3 to look into more deeper sort of analysis of the Buddha's doctrine of Anatta. And the chapter title, the next title will be Belief in Soul is Not Dhamma. So, this chapter demolishes all the so-called philosophical jugglery of the Brahmans and Atma and Paramatma. So I think I will stop here, and we will open our class for any discussion that we would like to have, or any questions or comments or anything that you would all like to discuss.
Sir, verse number 14, 47, and 48, the lady, beautiful lady concept, I didn't got. Do we have a similar kind of another example to understand these verses?
Okay. See, this rhetoric device, this linguistic device, come often in the Buddhist text, the simile of the most beautiful women. Okay. So, someone claims that they are in love with the most beautiful women in the world, right? and they say that they have been in love with her for a long time, and the if you probe them, what is it that makes the most beautiful women? Can there be a concept like the most beautiful women? Because the concept of the beauty varies from people to people. There is no absolute beauty, isn't it? So everything becomes like this pursuit of the most beautiful women becomes a kind of a jugglery of the word. It's a creation of it's a fiction created by certain minds, you know, and they find it beautiful. Not that there is a universal beautiful women in the world. You see, Umesh bhai, where this rhetoric device is leading up to?
No, sir, not able to get.
Okay, it is like saying, say for example, the most beautiful city.
Okay.
Okay, that I live in the most beautiful city. So most beautiful city is a fiction. There cannot be absolutely most beautiful city, because some cities you call most beautiful might be around the seashore, but there might be other city which is on the mountain more beautiful.
Perfect.
You got it? Or
Yes, sir.
there might be a city which is in the mountains, or in the Himalayas, or there might be city in Tamil Nadu. So what do you call most beautiful city?
There is not no any set of rules to define the beauty.
There is no any set of rules to define. So, but to claim that I live in the most beautiful city is a foolish talk.
Okay.
Just to claim that I love the most beautiful women in the world is a false claim.
You can put under the category of beautiful things. Yeah, these things are beautiful, but you can't characterize that this thing is only the beauty.
Is the most beautiful. You see,
Yeah.
it is the reality. And that brings out to this rhetoric device also then branch out to understanding that the truth that we talk about, they are not absolute, they are relative truths. Just like the most beautiful women is a relative sort of a concept. So for me, somebody can be the most beautiful woman, but for others, she might not be.
Yeah.
You see? So for example, something can be true relative to me, might not be true relative to you.
It's relative, not absolute.
It's relative, not absolute. It's and relational things we can just know it by wordplay only,
Yeah,
by
we
conceptual
need
things.
we need reference for that.
We need reference for that. So what is the reference of the Brahma?
Mhm.
Whether it's black or white, whether it's high or low, what is it?
Yeah, got it, got it.
So if you the Brahmins are very very shrewd. They try to find the answer to this question. So when you ask whether the Brahma is black, they will say neti neti, not this, not this. So if you deny everything as not this, not this, then it's anti-knowledge,
Yes.
isn't it? If you ask, okay, tell us about Brahma, whether it is black, no, no, nati, 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 neti, neti, not this, not this. So then what is it?
Their philosophy also put the people in the loop of previous janma karma.
Yes.
So is it like that Brahma is just like some god created by the clever Brahmins itself as an imagination?
Yes, it's an imaginative fiction, just like the most beautiful women.
Mhm.
It's a fiction. It's not grounded in reality.
Mm.
It's not grounded in reality, because when we go to the next section, we see that there is nothing like soul in us. There is nothing in the world that is permanent, that is fixed. And there are a lot of arguments on this, not just these arguments, but in the Buddhist scriptures throughout the history, there are a lot of arguments which demolish the very concept of, this jugglery of the words.
Yeah, somewhere Baba Sahib also told that the history of India is nothing but fight between Brahmanism and Buddhism.
Yes. So from the real problem of suffering to the philosophy of not letting people think. Let people explore what is Brahma, let people understand what is Brahma. You cannot answer it like not this, not this.
Yes, perfect.
Anything from anybody?
More
See,
clarity will come in the next chapter, I hope, Miss.
yes,
That
yes,
when,
yes.
so
Yes. See, I think this is very clear, because why in Buddhism when the Buddha discovered that the mind is the central, the human mind, the human chitta is the center, and there is no higher agency which and whose on whose hand we are mere puppets. There are of course causes and conditions, but they are not absolute causes and conditions. The causes changes, the conditions changes. So there is no governor, there is no regulator of the universe. It cannot be, because to create such a complex world, the creator has to be more complex than its creation. And we know that whatever created there is on the earth has taken millions and millions and millions of years to produce whatever it is today. So in order to produce that creator which has created this, has to be a more complex reality than what we see today. It might have taken millions and millions and millions of years to evolve that so-called God. And it's not just possible. So the concept of God is a very impossible, untenable concept. It's a fiction that has been told many times by all the religions. And in the name of God, we know what has happened in the world. Isn't it? So if you repeat certain things over and over, some propaganda through some propaganda device, the same is true about what we say that majority of the Indians believe that they are Hindus. But most of the majority of them are the Shudras. How can the religion that enslaves them can be their religion? So because there has been a propaganda all the time, constant propaganda to fool the masses into believing into something. That is what the mass media does. That is what the advertisement does, to make us think something which is not true, to make us like something which we are not, intended to like, by constant bombarding. Most of our thoughts are created by this systems around us, the structures around us, isn't it? But it's not. It's all man-made. It's created by the human consciousness. The world around us is created by the human consciousness, nothing else. The room that we live in, the fans, whatever we experience, and whatever is inorganic has evolved through the process of evolution. So the idea of believing in God or Brahma, claiming that, my Atma is going to have a union with Paramatma and then I will be happy. These are all, just mere talks according to the Buddha. And it does nothing to the society. What it has done to the community, what it has done to the Indian society. Suppose, say, for example, Vedantism is a doctrine that has been preached, and the best doctrine in the world. What it has done for the Indians? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. So if there are no further questions, should we end our class here today?
Belief in soul is not Dhamma. Can
Yes,
we
that will
continue?
be next chapter.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you so much for joining in today, and we will meet next week.